Coming to you live is the AutoHub show, changing automotive one show at a time with Ian and Jeff. And here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions in routine requests? Still, the average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. So who will pick up? Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend with human-level understanding in a friendly conversational voice. Her conversational intelligence is built on millions of actual service industry conversations. Book with Brooke today. Visit Brooke.ai or call 866-942-1236. Finally, the perfect match.
Our goals are always to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important things that we look for. I'm Mike Burrell. I'm Service Director at JM Lexus.
Larry Feldman is probably the most amazing trainer that I've ever experienced in this business. I've been in the car business now for 35 years, and I've seen quite a few trainers. A lot of them are pretty good. I mean, really, I get something out of all of them that I've seen, really. But Larry is in another class. I really mean that. His training is literally riveting. A little while back, I sat in on his first training that I ever sat in on. It was for new hires. I still remember. I'll never forget it. About 25 people in the room who'd never sold cars before. And after 2 hours, I raised my hand and Larry stopped what he was doing and said, yes. And I said, maybe we should take a break. And literally, I'll never forget it. All 25 people turned around, looked at me and went, well, we're okay. And he kept going for another 2 hours. Since then, I've seen a few other of his trainings. I've hired people out of his classes. All I can say is, you got to give him a try.
That's cute.
And now, Jeff, to our disclaimer.
I was too busy dancing. You know, I really like our song. Do. Anyways, so I got to do the disclaimer because that way keeps us out of trouble. The views and opinions shared today and every day are those of our guests, not necessarily that of the AutoHub show or Ian and Jeff. By the way, though, we have the nicest person in the car business here today, so there's no way we're going to have to worry about anything.
So go ahead, Jeff.
And joining us this afternoon, I wanted to say this morning, I'm so tired, is Lyamen Savy, who is to my understanding, the founder, the CEO, the chief everything, the motivation and the spirit behind 321 Ignition. And Lyamen, would you mind introducing yourself, telling us a bit about yourself and your business, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, my name is Lyamen Savy. I live in Washington State, so this trip actually wasn't that far. Finally, most of our trips, conferences in automotive, they're like East Coast, so I'm gonna fly for like 5 hours. So this was pretty easy. I'm a CEO and founder of 321 Ignition, which is we're the only mobile-first website provider in the automotive industry. Shocking. And we build mobile-first websites for car dealerships. We have a ton of API integrations. Probably the most lead generation tools than I've seen anybody else, and we really focus on how to help dealerships go through digital transformation.
Fantastic. And we just had another guest join.
Yes, we are very lucky to have the visit from a gentleman introduced to us by our good friend Don Graff from Bonita Springs, Florida. And we have joining us here and running away actually is Greg. I don't know, Greg's the Deiesio coming to us. Greg, would you mind introducing yourself, your business, and thank you for taking the time to be with us. And you got to remove the mute button again.
Great, thanks again. It's Greg Deiesio, so that was perfect.
Perfect.
Perfect, yeah, thanks. Thanks for having us. And yeah, very exciting. Hope you guys are having a good time out there.
Absolutely.
So tell us about your business and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, let's start with a little bit about myself. I'm a car guy. I've been a car guy for, I hate to say it, over 30 years. I'm one of like the rare kind of guys that have OEM experience, heavy OEM experience, multiple 12, 15 years with BMW and NA. Then I went on to run two big Highline auto groups here in the New York Metro. And then I did a lot of marketing with iHeartRadio. And then I finally got into franchising. So I was a head of franchising for Mitsubishi Motors. COVID hit. Strange things happened, as you guys know, in the auto industry. And I decided then to take and create my own company that really specializes in franchising. And what we do is we really help dealers find OEM franchises or help independents locate new franchises, new buildings, new locations to expand their own businesses. So right now we're doing great. And we're really concentrating on the independents. We found that there's a real need for the independent to take advantage of finding either an OEM franchise to help their existing pre-owned company, or to forget about the OEM and just build a stronger pre-owned entity in their locations. So that's what we're doing. So we could talk a little bit about that if you like, but it's a lot of fun. We're having a good time, and it's a good time. Contrary to what people are saying, it is a good time in the car industry. It's tough, but we're getting through it, and I think we're going to do okay.
Terrific. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us. I notice if you're in the New York area, it's getting dark behind you. It's dinner time,
Yeah.
or well, New York dinner time's 10 o'clock. But thanks for joining us. And who knows, maybe a little connection with Lyamen and you, because she's in the mobile integration of the automotive industry. So the first question I'm going to hit you with, and normally what we've been doing is asking people what they want to get out of the show. But frankly, we're going to switch those questions too, because you're at the big show there. But so Lyamen, you were actually featured today at one of the sessions. You're a featured speaker, or tell us about that.
I was featured, but I had a session, a training session. It was about 25 ways dealerships can increase their leads and sales from their website without spending a penny more in marketing.
Oh, I like that. I've got to watch the recording of that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So tell us three.
Well, 3 years. One, user experience, mobile first user experience. So if you look at a car dealership's Google Analytics account, you will notice that a majority of their website traffic is mobile. It's like over 80% is mobile. And as a matter of fact, the majority of internet traffic is mobile. It's because it's such a huge percent of people access internet on a mobile device. Google last year actually switched to mobile first indexing. What that means is that Google now, when it goes out and crawls through World Wide Web, it only crawls the mobile version of your content. They're not even paying attention to your desktop content. So we really focus on how to give car shoppers the best experience on a mobile device.
So is that because like old people are getting less and less, and then young people are getting more and more?
I don't know. I think even older people are also using mobile devices.
That's very true. So, Greg, tell me, have you had much experience or feedback from people on mobile web and versus
Yeah,
desktop?
Desktop.
Desktop web.
TikTok.
almost everything is on phone or mobile app, and I think it's been here forever already. It seems like forever, and it's not going to change. So those who don't jump in and realize that is the future and that is the current future, they're going to be left behind. It's as simple as that. And I think that some of our not our OEMs, our independents, have a big learning curve, and I think you guys are experiencing that. We've got to bring them into this market as fast as possible, or they're going to be left behind because they are competing against the OEMs. It's as simple as that. And what I've been telling my prospects that um, you're competing against existing car companies, OEM car companies that have been around for potentially 50, 60 years through the families. And the poor OEM um, got through a tough time with COVID, but they got through it and they all made money. The problem is that these OEMs also made a lot of enemies during COVID by charging excessive amounts of money, by charging over list price, by putting addendums on everything. So I think what I'm telling my dealers, my independent dealers, that this is a huge opportunity for them. They could come out being the good guy. They could come out with competitive pricing, competitive cars from a pre-owned standpoint, as the OEMs have on their lots, and they could really serve their customers much better than I hate to say it, but the fiasco that the OEMs committed on customers in the past 2 or 3 years. It's been terrible. Now we got to get the OEMs to really either do two things. They've got to change the way they've handled their customers because they're losing them, or we got to get the independents to become more like OEMs and handle the customer like they used to better. But there's a problem with the OEMs. Um, Customers remember. They're losing the sale. They're not getting the be back customer. They're losing the service customer. They're losing the referrals. And God, have you gone on and looked at some of the Google um, reviews of some of the OEMs in your area? It's terrible. People are wising up. So, bottom line, huge opportunity for the independent. They have the same cars in stock. They can sell them competitively. The only thing that they have to do is get competitive banks. That's really the secret here. The reason that OEMs do well is because they have tier one banks. The independents don't have those tier one banks, so they can't be competitive in pricing and interest rates when they sell a used vehicle. So what we're trying really hard is to get the tier one and banks to understand that the independents are theoretically they're little OEMs on their own in their own way. The way they take care of customers, the way they service it, the way they're in the neighborhood, the way they take care of the community, and that's what we're preaching right now. Take care of your customer, Mr. Independent car dealer. Take care of your customer.
So then, how is it? So you get an independent that's sitting there with a. Oh, Ian, stop. You get you get an independent sitting there, and they've got a 2020 Tesla Model 3 sitting on their lot for more money than a new one. So how is it? How do we explain that? I'm not trying to argue with you. Please forgive me, but we're trying to create the independent. We're much nicer, kinder, more gentler than the OEM. But by the way, that car that's $55,000 at Tesla, which they don't have, I have for 65 for 2 years older.
Right. Well, I can't help them if they purchase the cars wrong, which a lot of people did 2 years ago. They just went out and they just overspent, and not by single multiples, by double multiples, 10%, 20%, 30% over what the value of the car was. Now they're sitting with these inventories that are just, choking some of them. My philosophy is move the cars around, move them to other areas, see if you could create a little co-op with other independent dealers so that maybe you could share websites together. And I'm sure your guest here is totally aware of how we can do that. Share websites, share cars. It's easy to put a car in a flatbed and drive it, 100 miles or 150 miles into a market where there's a customer that wants that and is willing to pay a little bit more for that Tesla, um, and get the independent dealer out of that car, the easiest way possible. Is there going to be some pain experience with some of these cars because they overpaid? Yeah. And my recommendation is try to get out of them as fast as you can, create co-ops, work together, because that's the only way you're going to survive and get out of this. You don't want to shut down because you bought cars 2 years ago at overpriced. You want to sell out of them.
A little scary if they're holding cars for 2 years, huh?
They are. Some of them are holding cars for 2 years. I bet you if you go around the table out there with some of these people, they'll tell you some horror stories. They got to get out of them. And I think the other thing, and again, I apologize, I'm talking a lot. I don't mean to. But the other thing is that if you have good customers, you could work on the referrals. That's the whole thing. Get a customer, make him really like you, make him want to do business with you, so that family members come and do the same thing, just like OEMs did for years.
I agree.
But as we said before, the OEMs now have a problem. They've made enemies.
Yeah.
20-30% over sticker price has made an enemy of the public.
For sure.
So Jeff, I had a question for Lyamen. I mean, obviously you work with a lot of independents.
Yeah.
And the independents obviously probably have less rules than, for example, an OEM store. What's your advice in terms of what they should do to not only move used inventory faster, but maybe to outfox their competition through a mobile-first website or using technology, or more importantly, data to get that done?
Overall, I think independent dealers, oh my God, it's kind of loud. Overall, independent dealers, I think, are more innovative because they don't have restrictions and OEM guidelines. They could do whatever they want. So they're more likely to actually test new things faster. But I also think a lot of independents think small. They think like a small moms and pops little business, and that's preventing them from growing. A lot of them are always thinking about how to pay someone the least amount instead of thinking about which vendor is actually going to give them the most amount of value. I always say there's no such thing as free lunch. And there isn't. It's just like, even with my boyfriend, we always argue, like, he loves getting something as a good deal. And I'm like, I just don't believe there's such thing as good deal. It's basic economics, You could either get something fast, cheap, or good quality. Pick two. You can't get all three.
Yeah.
So even like when Nordstrom's is having their anniversary sale, like, I personally can never find anything I like in their anniversary sale. It's like, and it's a waste of my time. I'd rather just know that I'm going to pay a full price, but it's okay. I'm going to get in and get out. My time is more valuable than that. And so with dealers, with independent dealers, their challenge is they think too small. They're always trying to nickel and dime, and they're not really thinking about what do I need to do to invest for the long term of my business. And the other thing is dealerships are actually flying blind because they don't own their data. They have no access to their data. And that's actually a problem I see just in automotive in general. I've never experienced anything like that outside of automotive, and I've been, doing marketing for 20 years. And like, as an example, most of the time dealerships don't have access to their Google AdWords. They hire marketing agencies who are spending $50,000 and $20,000 per month, and if a dealership wants to cancel them, they lose all of their historical data. But they just spend $20,000 per month on advertising. Those are their key learnings, and they just lost all of that. Or more importantly, they don't even see what an agency is doing because they don't even have access to log in to do it. And then agencies, of course, will tell them, well, it's our secret sauce. There is no secret sauce. Google Ads is just, you're bidding on keywords.
I think McDonald's is the only one with secret sauce, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, but the other thing that was really interesting when I was working with some dealers in the Canadian market, specifically Honda dealers, was that the manufacturer was directly competing with the dealers on keywords. For example, they said, okay, you can buy keywords, but not these ones because we're buying those ones. So you're 100% right. I mean, not only should you have access to the data, whether you're working in a marketing company or not, you need to have access to the data, but more importantly, you need someone who can explain it to you if you don't understand it, to make sure that you're not making mistakes that are not only costing you money, but are costing you results. And I think part of the challenge with dealers today, doesn't matter the size, is they can't be experts on everything, but it's the service provider or the partner or the dealer vendor who's really has to partner with that dealership to add value, but more importantly, to get them the result in order to not only keep the client, but to help that client grow. And that's really what it should be about.
Well, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here. So
No.
all the agencies, they're kind of hurting each other. So marketing agencies, I see this all the time because we work with a lot of dealerships, and a lot of times dealerships will ask me to be on their board of advisors, and so I have access to a lot of information. And so I've been on so many agency calls where agencies would send a dealership at the end of the month a monthly performance review kind of report. Those reports, the only data they're showing 99% of the time is here's how much we paid on the cost per 1,000 impressions, here's how much we paid on the cost per click, here's how many VDP views we generated, and here's your cost per VDP views. None of those metrics actually say to a dealership how well their marketing is performing. Not only is it not saying how well their marketing is performing, they're also not showing, well, how did we do historically, like trend lines, like month over month. Like I literally am visualizing right now one of the PowerPoints I received from an agency that had, we spend this month, we generated 10,000 VDP views. Well, great. How did you get those 10,000 VDP views? Is it because you spend more this month, or is it because you actually were better with your targeting, or did your website convert? And also, why are agencies reporting on the cost per VDP view instead of cost per lead, cost per sale? And the reason why agencies are not doing that is also because website providers are not, their websites are not performing. And so it's like agency doesn't want to hurt their business just because they're doing their job of, targeting and managing keywords, managing their, targeting capabilities on social media. But then it's not their fault that the website doesn't convert. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well then they can't actually show you that, because then you're going to fire them for no reason.
You really touched on something very interesting here, is the cost per sale.
Yeah.
If you think about this, and Greg, I'm going to hit you up with this in a minute too. You think about this. Well, cost per lead. Okay, we're at 12 cents per lead. That's great. We only handle 30% of our leads. The other 70% go running down the street, to another dealer who only handles 70%. So which means that customer has to hit 6 dealers before they get a response. So this cost per sale is very interesting. I love that concept. Drill down how much it cost you to sell that car. So how many leads did you get in that car? And by the way, how many contacts, how many appointments, how much time was spent on it? And then you take a look and you sell the car and you go, oh, right, look at all the money I made. And you go, oh, wait a minute. So that's a very good one. Greg, what's your opinion on that?
I think you're right on with that. I think statistics is really are the future of all car dealers. They have to know, number one, what cars are selling, what cars will sell at what price, what cars customers want and would really give them a good return, not only from selling the initial car, but whether they're coming back for service or referrals. And more importantly, what kind of reviews are they going to give the dealer? That's the big thing right now. And I think everybody agrees to that. Everybody looks at every customer looks at a Google review. They want to see what this dealer is like. Are they trustworthy? Can I really depend on them? So right now, I think that's key. So what they're paying for that lead, what they're paying for future leads, God, it's almost secondary in comparison to the initial purchase and that initial customer as to what they do with them. And if they mess that one up, then it's a long session going past. They lose the referral, they lose the Google review, they lose the service, they lose the parts, they lose everything. So you're right, absolutely correct.
But hey, if you're an OEM and you're charging $25,000 over MSRP, who cares what they think about you? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
when you look at the average websites out in the marketplace, and there's a lot of providers in the space, and I actually, coincidentally, to be straightforward, did used to work for a website company. There are a lot of choices in the market. Unfortunately, the vast majority are still using antiquated platforms. They're not integrated in mobile. They're not proactive thinking. They're not really looking at what's good for the dealer, but more importantly, what's good, to Lyman's point, for the device. Because depending on the market, I mean, it depends in North America and globally, but I would say anywhere between 68 and 78% of the clients are only using a mobile device. Obviously, it's probably sided a little bit to younger people, just because of the older people may not be as savvy. But we've had Google on the show. We've had
what do we consider
Airstrike.
young? Like, is 50 years old young or old?
No, I'm saying baby boomers are older, so someone who's maybe 65 to 75 or older.
They're using mobile devices just as much as the younger ones.
Well, maybe, but what I'm saying,
you're digging yourself a hole here. I think
digging
you gotta
myself
find
a
your
hole.
way
But
out.
either way, it's a high percentage. But the thing that was surprising to me, as I not only spent 3 years looking at websites for many different manufacturers and many different dealers and many different industries, and also, talk to people every single week in technology on the show, was the lack of understanding of the difference. So when you're looking at not only the technology, but also that website provider, you really need to look at it and say, okay, do I want to be ahead of that tsunami that's going to hit me, or am I comfortable being behind it if the manufacturer's picking up the tab? And that was what I heard over and over again from dealers, not to beat them up, but you need the best. The cost is secondary.
Exactly.
What's the best solution for your dealership? The manufacturer, unfortunately, they got enough balls in the air. They really don't have all that information. And unfortunately, as a dealership, you're missing out if you don't have the best solution. So my question for you, Lyamen, is obviously what's your advice to a dealer who says, Stellantis is paying, or General Motors is paying, or Honda is paying, or whoever? What's your advice to them?
Website is probably the smallest expense a dealership has. Like literally, out of everything else that they have to pay for, even if they're paying $2,000 per month out of their own pocket versus Stellantis, who cares? It's $2,000 in the grand scheme of thing of everything else. So if a dealership is spending, let's say, $50,000 a month on advertisement, who cares if they're paying $2,000 for a website that's supposed to actually convert that $50,000 into actually leads and sales? It's like, it's a small chump change. And by the way, those OEM programs, I actually think they're really hurting dealerships, and they're really preventing dealerships from going through digital transformation, providing the right customer experience. And that's how Tesla was actually kicking ass, even though their customer service, in terms of like once you place an order, you have to wait for a year to get a car. But consumers are just fed up. They're fed up of having to haggle. They're fed up of having poor user experiences. It's basic stuff. And here's a funny story. So the other day I was talking to one of the brand new dealerships that just signed up with us. And he calls me up and he's like, Lyamen, he's like, when a consumer walks into my dealership, 80% of them will buy a car. But I need to get more people to come to my dealership. I'm like, well, no shit.
Yeah.
Consumers do all their research online. On average, they're visiting 1 to 2 dealerships before buying a car, because the dealership they're going to is the one they're actually going to test drive the car and buy the car. So it's very hard for you to actually mess up that sale by the time they walked into your showroom.
Yeah.
So the key is to actually get them to your showroom, but while they're doing that research online, they're eliminating dealerships to visit. And so your dealership website is the most important sales tool. Here, dealerships are hiring 5 salespeople at their showroom, but consumers are not walking into their showroom. The consumers are spending all the time on a website. So I really don't understand the whole mentality of, I'm going to cut corners with my website, and the grand scheme of things of everything else the dealership has to pay for. But guess what? Maintaining those websites is extremely expensive. These are not just, cute little dentist website or a lawyer's website. These are full-blown e-commerce websites. They require a lot of API integrations, a lot of, digital, like lead generation tools and GTM management and all that other stuff, SEO management, Google constantly releasing new updates. Like e-commerce websites are very, very complicated. And guess what? Somebody has to pay people to work.
Yep.
Did you know that ever since pandemic happened, I heard a statistic that where the salaries for digital marketers increased by 30%. 30%. You know how hard it is to find talented marketers? Everybody wants a talented digital marketer because everything is digital. Like even before COVID, when consumers actually used to, pre-COVID, be able to go into the store, more and more consumers now went digital, and now more and more retail stores went to digital. That means there's more and more demand for digital talent, and there's not enough people who are good at digital marketing. So how can dealerships possibly try to get a website for less than $1,000, e-commerce website? I just don't understand that.
Well, and Greg, you've got the OEM background on this. I know a lot of dealers. I worked for a lot of dealers. I was one of those dealers, but I was way smarter. But the fact is that, co-op. Oh, I love co-op. They're going to help me pay for it. This particular company Ian was with, they were only deemed worthy. That's an Ian Nethercott term. They were only deemed worthy by one manufacturer. And from what he told me anecdotally, was every one of them said, well, I can't co-op you, so I'm not interested. See ya. So on the OEM side of things, are dealers, basically, I think you kind of said it, they're cutting themselves short by just looking at, let's see where we can save money and you can save money you can lose money by saving money, right?
They're not saving money if they're wasting money on advertisement. If the
Yep.
website doesn't convert, you're not saving money. Period.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
we were at lunch today with the Women in Auto celebration for awards from a number of different areas, and the woman there was from Car Gurus, I believe, and she was quoting some numbers on digital retail specifically, but the numbers that we've heard on the show before from Google and others, Digital Airstrike I think was one of them, was that years ago it was about a 4 hours spent online before someone went to a car dealership. Today it's anywhere from 20 to 40 hours based on those shows. You can definitely reach back and listen to those if you want the accurate data. That's off the top of my head, but the amount of time people are spending online before even selecting a dealer to come visit is much higher than it's ever been, and chances are that rabbit's not going back in the box. But go ahead, Jeff.
Well, yeah, actually, the reason I think probably, and Greg, please give me your opinion on this, is like Lyamen said, they're doing this mobile now. So while they're sitting at Starbucks, while they're sitting wherever at a light, which they should not be doing, they're searching. Is that what you're finding too, Greg?
Absolutely. And we're looking at the Carvanas of the world. And obviously they're having some tough times because they're not furnishing them with the true concierge type of service that customers are demanding nowadays. And I think we just talked about that. So I think the best thing our independents can do is become a concierge service, deliver cars, take care of customers like that. And I keep going back to the customer, because if you don't have your customer, you have nothing. Doesn't matter. You can have the greatest cars priced right. If you don't have a customer, you don't have a sale. And if you don't have a sale, you don't have a company. So I'm telling my dealers to become more like a concierge service. Deliver the car.
I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
So, you know, my background is not automotive. I've only been in automotive for 4 years. Outside of automotive, salespeople, when they're actually doing sales, they're cold calling. They're going and hunting for business. Dealership salespeople are not cold calling. They're just following up on leads, and yet they're making over 200K. A lot of them are.
Well, I mean, I sold cars for 10 years. I have a family history in the business for close to 100 years. I sold other things before the car business, including computer products and marketing services and transportation logistics. My view on salespeople in the car industry is the very good ones do prospect and they do go out there and do work. But I would agree that in the last 18 to 24 months, that hasn't happened much because they can either handle the leads that come in if they so choose. And I think we heard a number of 30% are unanswered completely today.
Yeah.
Or they can wait for someone to show up and pay too much for something. So I think what will happen in the next, I would say, we were talking about this today, I think the next couple months is we're going to have a tsunami hit the industry where the salesman that we're making, let's just say 150,000 for a rough metric. I think that number's still kind of high, but let's just say it's 150,000. Those people were making that money in a one moment of time. So what's going to happen is they're going to decrease their income to back where it used to be pre-pandemic unless they go and prospect, unless they prospect, but more importantly, unless they handle the leads properly that are coming in. So we were talking about this on the show that 30% of leads today go unanswered. Nobody responds at all to them today.
Yeah.
So why would you spend money marketing to get more leads if you can't even handle the ones you have?
Well, not only that, but you just said the consumers are spending, what is it? You said 40 hours?
They said 20 to 40 was the metric we got from Google and I think Digital Airstrike, if memory serves me, on average.
So that means your online presence is the salesperson. Your online presence is the one who's selling the car to the consumer. But the time consumers contacting a dealership, it's a very low funnel warm lead. So the dealership paid all that money to get consumers to actually become a low funnel lead. Shouldn't the salesperson commission be adjusted based on when they're hunted for the business versus when dealerships spend all this money generating?
Well, I mean, there's more to it than that. So number one, you got to look at that 30% number. So let's just say a dealer search or a customer searches 5 different brands or 5 different dealerships. So number one, they're looking at customer experience in terms of response time and how that's handled. But number two, in some cases, they're buying cars at multiple dealerships. Now, in terms of compensation or in terms of pay plan, that's a long-standing topic of discussion for whether it be finance or F&I or sales managers, where we can speak to that a little bit from the Toyota example from Jeff. But essentially, when consumer when salespeople make more money because it's easier to sell cars at a higher profit margin, that tends to inflate their income. So what will eventually happen is the dealer will adjust that. And we had an example where a car is being marked up, what, $35,000 or something,
Yeah.
and they were still paying them 300
Paid a
bucks.
$300 flat. Greg, can you answer Lyman's question there?
Yeah, I think because you're right, because of COVID, everything became skewed. We don't know what reality is any longer, but I think we got to go back to like Ian said, you got to go back 3 years. That's reality, and we have to come back to that now. And pay plans have to change. You have to be more aggressive with your pay plans, and more importantly, you have to make sure that you educate your salespeople so that they. And I keep going back to it, so they do take care of the customer. And I think you reward the salesperson from a good Google review. You reward him higher if there are referrals that come from the initial customer. You reward them if you do have a service department, if the customer comes back for service. So this way, the salesperson buys into the actual store. He becomes an active participant in the profitability of the store and not just from the initial sale of a vehicle. He lives through the vehicle, the whole life of the vehicle with that customer, whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long the customer has it. So if you keep rewarding the customer by giving him good service, you should reward the salesperson. That also will keep the salesperson or people at the dealership. Because if they are able to keep that quality salesperson at the dealership, then they don't have to go through the education. They don't have to hire new people. They don't have to train new people. And it just works out so much better for everybody. So the dealer principal, whether it's an OEM or independent, he's got to learn to take care of his staff, and vice versa. The staff has to learn to take care of the dealership itself. They can't just go for a big hit on a commission 20% over XYZ, and then he walks away from the deal 2 days later because he got his commission check. That's not going to work anymore. You have to have a salesperson who marries into the dealership and really wants to come there every single day, because he'll check who's in service. He'll check the parts department. He'll check his Google reviews. He'll check all these things. The salesman will. And give him $5 if the customer gives him a good Google review. Give him $10 if the customer comes back for service. Let the salesperson buy into it. Same thing with the F&I manager. Same thing with all your managers, sales managers. Work on pay plans that give them longevity at your store. It's a lot easier to keep a good salesperson than it is to lose them and train another one to try to be as good. So that's what we've been preaching. Part of what we do is really to teach the dealer, whether he's OEM or independent, your personnel, not only the cars, but your personnel are equally as important to you. Without them, you don't have a store. Simple as that. So now you got the tsunami of cars are priced too high. Salespeople are expecting too much money. We're not getting the leads that we thought we would because people are becoming, disenchanted with car dealers and so forth, et cetera. So it really is a crazy time. So take a deep breath, step back, look at what you have in front of you. I think we talked about that before, and say, how could I fix it? How could I reassure that I'm going to be here tomorrow? And the other thing, just one other thing that I did mention, I've got a lot of OEMs that are calling us and coming to us, not OEM, sorry, independents looking to purchase, as I started out today's conversation, looking to purchase an OEM because of the banking and all the other issues. One thing I tell my independents is that, are you prepared to become an OEM dealer? Number one, what kind of service experience do you have? What kind of parts experience do you have? What kind, there's a million things that an OEM does that an independent does not do effectively. So what we're trying to do is and again, some of these independents made a lot of money during COVID. They're cashed up right now, and a lot of them are calling us saying, hey, I want an OEM, I want tier one banks, I want all this stuff. The problem is, are they really prepared for that wish when they get it? I would suggest that they start thinking about service managers, start thinking about service departments, start thinking about parts departments, start thinking about, whether it's a website that's interactive with all of the above, whether it's service and parts, whether you have every single one of your salespeople hooked up to their mobile phone, that every lead goes to a particular person and rotates through so that no lead, like you just said, 30% of the leads are not touched. Well, you know what? Have every single one of those leads go to either a sales manager or a GSM who can handle that lead immediately. Therefore, you cut down dramatically on your lost leads. So that's the other thing. I used to make it mandatory, especially on weekends. Someone's phone, they had to take the company phone. That phone had to be dialed in so that every email, every phone call, every text message was answered literally within 20 minutes. And 20 minutes was too long in today's environment. We're trying for 10 minutes.
Well,
So
it's quite funny that this is what we did years ago, and the practices aren't being followed today. But Lyman, did that answer your question? All of our put thing together, why salespeople don't prospect?
Well, it sounds like you guys are saying that the salesperson commission plan should stay the same. And I was saying that if the digital marketing, if consumers are doing all their research online, then it's no longer the salesperson selling. The salesperson's taking orders.
It's truly never been the salesperson being responsible to sell it. In my opinion, and please tell me I'm wrong, anybody, the dealer's job is to get him in the door. It's the salesperson's job to turn that into a deal. And
Is that selling though, or is that just providing good customer service?
I think they're the same, but the fact is this: today, somebody comes in the door, they know that they want to get the Kia Soul for you with the upgrade package in the Priscilla lime green. I don't know what the color's called, and they want it now. And it's that job to put that person onto paper, and you can't get the Priscilla green. You probably can't get the for you. What do you do? And that's the job of the people on the floor.
But to Lyman's point, and I managed a department for at the time one of the largest Honda stores in the country, and it was always interesting because this was now 15 years ago. When I started with that department, the previous manager was at about a 5% delivered car ratio. I moved that number to close to 20%. But the difference was we actually moved that customer from online to sale as a team of people versus today, when you look at the car salesman today in your average retail location, most of the time they're doing nothing because there's no people. And we did a show on this walk-in traffic a couple weeks ago. But to Lyman's point, okay, I'm a dealer. I'm spending the number they always talk about is $500 a lead to get a lead, which we all know is probably not accurate. I mean, I know a study that I did when I was Absolute, it was over $1,000 a lead, roughly. But it's not just about the lead cost, it's about conversion. But more importantly, that salesperson who historically has just been able to wait, they're going to have to get more proactive in terms of doing things like buying cars, for example. We had Danny on, going out and prospecting existing customers, getting referrals. I mean, some of the most successful car salesmen on the planet, including in the U.S. and Canada. Dylan from Winnipeg, who sells over, I think he sells on average 120 cars a month, and the gentleman Riza, I believe, from Detroit, who's now beaten our buddy. He does the same thing, but those people are not your typical car salesperson, much like your typical insurance agent, your typical realtor. There are people that are going to rise to the top and do more.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of car salespeople in North America, even during this time, are only selling 8 to 12 cars. That's the metric. So if you change their pay plan, which you could do, and some dealers do and probably will, you may find you don't have a salesperson, because finding someone to replace that person today with a retention number of salesperson, what did we say, 70% turn?
Oh, it's at least 70%.
Yeah. So finding a person to replace that person, especially someone who's a millennial or younger, because the people like me, they're not making more. There's less probably, or like Jeff, probably less. They're not going back to doing that. Probably.
Are you implying I'm old?
No, you're younger.
I'm 12.
Oh, okay, no worries. So, yeah, from a point of view of compensation, I think that's an interesting discussion. We've had the discussion with Brian Benstock around the F&I office, heaven forbid. But, there will be some change, but I think the future is going to be as a team approach. And we've talked about this on multiple shows where you have a sales manager, a salesperson, an F&I, BDC, service department. They work together, and then they share that, much like a waiter would at a restaurant. That's not the prevailing current reality, but it may be as we have less staff and more of the online process. Because at Car Guru Study, she was talking about, I think it was 70% of people are now doing at least part of the process online. Oh, yeah. I don't know how big the sample size is, and people disagree with her, but I think that's more
majority of the process online.
They're coming with a and everything, do the finding, and to pick up parts. Any part is an analogy. I'm a formula happening in a row. Everybody kisses him. Oh, you're a wonderful guy. You're great. And anything else. He's a very talented driver. The funny part is he wouldn't get there if he didn't have the best car, and his team has the best car. So he's won the championship. The team's won the manufacturer's championship. His teammate is fighting for second. The team told him to move over and let him by to get the points to be second, and he said no. Now, the point being with all this is you can't be world champion without a solid team and a solid car.
Yes.
Is that right, Greg?
Absolutely. You hit it right on the head, but I like your idea. Brian does it a lot at the Honda store. And that's the team, working as teams. And when you have some of these younger salespeople, they feel more comfortable as a team because then they can go to the sales manager, go to the F&I manager, go to the delivery manager, go to the concierge person or the BDC person, and they feel like they're part of the team. That's why we're recommending that payment across multiple areas for them. Reward those salespeople, or reward everybody in the dealership. Ryan's very good at that, by the way. He rewards everybody. And that's the way I think it's going to work in the future. Think of the money that you're going to save by not having to train these people. You know, the old joke was, well, how do you train a person? Well, you give them the New York phone book and you say, here, start making phone calls.
Hey, I got that when I first started selling cars. I never did it.
Yeah, so did I.
It was the Calgary phone book, not the New York phone book. But
Started A, White Pages?
Yeah, started the white. Started A, Mr. Albert. We're just winding the show down. I thank you both for the time. Greg, I thank you for waiting most of the day here to get logged in. Lyamen, gosh, I love having you here. Thank you so much. Final parting thoughts, Greg.
www.automotivefranchisedevelopment.com. Whether you're an OEM dealer or independent, we could help you walk through the whole process and we stay with you. That's the difference.
Thank you very much, Lyamen.
Final thoughts. Let's see. www.321ignition.com. We're actually having a Black Friday special right now that expires the day after Thanksgiving. So contact us. You could save 41% of your monthly subscription for a year. So
Fantastic. And how can people get in touch with you otherwise? Just go on the website? Is that the best way?
yeah, website, call us. I'm all over social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm the only Lyamen savvy I know.
I think it says like 3, 2, 1,
ignition.
Blast off for more sales.
Exactly.
And thank you, everybody, for joining in. Thank you, Fred, for saying that you couldn't hear me. Hopefully you could now. And when I grow up, I want to be like you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great show.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.